Hello, everybody. We are very pleased here in Kigali to welcome all of you for this webinar. My name is Guillaume Maresco. I'm Vice President of IRCAD Africa, and this webinar is just done to explain to all the surgeons from the continent what is the concept of IRCAD and what IRCAD Africa will provide for the continent. We're very happy because it's already a big success. We have already nearly 300 people registered for this webinar, so thanks to everybody. The question everybody can ask is, why Rwanda? IRCAD in France never wanted to expand and didn't expect to come to Rwanda at first, but it's a strong political will from President Kagame, who convinced Professor Maresco, my father, to open an IRCAD in Africa. But we cannot imagine to open a center exactly the same as the center in Strasbourg. We need to have the strength and the help of all the surgeons from the whole continent to make this journey a success. So today we are going to speak about all the project. And first I want to introduce my father, Professor Jacques Maresco, who will explain you the whole concept of IRCAD. Please.
So thank you very much, Guillaume. I have, I think, 15 minutes just to explain to everybody the concept of IRCAD and why we were so impressed to do an IRCAD in Rwanda. So just an introduction about our environment in Strasbourg. You know that Strasbourg in France is not a big city. It's a city of 400,000 inhabitants. But like Germany, it's a very, very strong university because it is in the top 100 worldwide university in the Shanghai ranking. And you know that you have in the world more than 32,000 universities. So what is the goal of IRCAD? You have really to understand that the goal of IRCAD is very simple. It is how we can democratize minimal invasive surgery. And for that, we have two ways. One is to develop new technology, especially digital technology, to support the surgeon. And the second one, sure, everybody knows, is education and training. So just a word about the research we do about technology. It is what we call augmented surgery. And augmented surgery, first of all, it is augmented vision. How the surgeon can see more than what his eyes are able to see. That is augmented reality, virtual reality. The second one is how the surgeon can improve the end, and that is robotic surgery. And finally, how the surgeon can improve his brain to have the best strategy before, during the operation, and after the operation. So just to understand how we can help the surgeon with this kind of support of technology. First of all, the surgeon has to understand the details of the anatomy because surgery is more and more focused. And you see by this kind of software that today we have created a spin-off whose name is Visible Patient, so it is on the market. We can very quickly have a 3D reconstruction of the CT scan or the 3D reconstruction of the MRI. So that is the first step, the reconstruction. After that, we can play with the computer. That means we can realize a simulation of the procedure. Here, for example, 3 metastases of the liver. So with the computer, we know what we have to remove, what we have to ablate. And here, for example, now it's the radiofrequency ablation simulation. So that is a lot of digital technology we develop. And finally, what the dream of the surgeon is a fusion of both images, the image given by the camera and the image done by the reconstruction. And if you have that, you have the transparency concept that is augmented reality. So that is a vision, very important. The hand, very important too, because today it's just a prehistory of robotics, and we know the evolution, and we are going to have a lot of smart robot, a robot with a lot of intelligence. And here, for example, you see Professor Armando Melani from Brazil is operating a complex tumor of the rectum. And you see like a GPS in a car, he has a 3D modeling, so he knows always where he is. And you see that he has not to go outside of the master part of the robot. He just look inside and he has a normal image given by the camera, and he has the 3D image to understand all the different landmarks. A word about what we have done now more than 20 years ago was a first long distance surgery between New York and Strasbourg, just to show that application of telemedicine to surgery, that is the definition of telesurgery, one day will happen, and it was possible to do that. And that was 20 years ago, but the name of the operation was Lindbergh between New York and Strasbourg. And now, what is the evolution of remote surgery? But you see that more and more we have a lot of Chinese publication trying to use the 5G, but you see that today it's still preclinical. That means on a banana or on another fruit or a pelvic trainer. Never it was more than 3,000 kilometers, because we have still what we call a latency time of 264 milliseconds. It's impossible to operate if the latency time is not less than 200 milliseconds. And look what was possible 20 years ago with two young engineers of France Telecom, clinical on a patient after ethical approval, 14,000 kilometers, and a latency time, donc 155 milliseconds. So today with the 5G, it's impossible. But with the next generation, perhaps the 6G, absolutely it will be a democratizing of a remote surgery. Finally, augmented brain. Augmented brain, it's artificial intelligence. It's not new. The first machine learning was developed in 1957 in the United States by Rosenblatt. He was the first one to have algorithms mimics the connection between two neurons. But you all know that we had to wait 2014. It was the first time the machine was a winner against the world champion of Go game. And South Korean always say never the machine can be the winner. It's impossible because we need predictive intelligence, and the machine was a winner. So what kind of application we do? We do like a control tower in the operating room. So that is done, a project finished. We analyze by artificial intelligence a lot of surgical procedure. And we know that one day the machine will give an alarm to the surgeon if the procedure doesn't respect the international recommendation. A word about real life. We work a lot. I always say we have like a Ferrari or a Rolls-Royce, but it is not the case today in the world, because you see that today 5 billion of the world population doesn't have access to medical imaging. That is not Africa, 5 billion. So it's people in United States, people in South America, etc. And that is the reason why we have developed a very, very important project with the researchers in Rwanda to try to have a low-cost imaging technology. We have no time to speak about that, just to say that it is a common team with Taiwan, but especially with Rwanda, because in Rwanda, you know that they have two fantastic institutions for artificial intelligence. One is a subsidiary of Carnegie and Mellon University of Pittsburgh, and the other one is African Institute of Mathematical and Science, and they have a lot of genius brain out of this school. I want to finish about what is certainly the most interesting for you. It is the training, the IRCAD concept of the training. Look at that. That was my generation, how I was trained. I remember when I was in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, it was like that. We were 30 in the operating room, impossible to see the details of the operation. And today, everything changed because we have connection with the best operating room in the world. And IRCAD Africa will benefit of that. That means we have today more than 800 international key opinion leaders. So we want to teach gastric cancer operation, for example. Immediately we are connected with South Korea because each department of South Korea, they open more than 1,000 gastric cancer case per year by minimal invasive surgery or robotics. And after that, we have a training, an hands-on training. It can be on simulator, it can be on cadaver, it can be on laboratory pigs. You will have exactly the same in Rwanda. That means 20 operating table with the last generation of technology. Here we have the high definition system of kartstos endoscope. We have all the disposable instrumentation of Medtronic, and all these partner will be partner also of IRCAD Africa. More and more we train flexible endoscopy course, percutaneous image guided surgery because it is the future. And here look what we have in Strasbourg, and you will have also Da Vinci robot in Rwanda, in Kigali, Africa, IRCAD Africa. You see that we have, today we have more than 30 robots. We have 13 robots from Intuitive Surgical, so it's the most important European center. During the COVID, we built a specific building with a very nice auditorium, and you see that the name of the auditorium is Paul Kagame Auditorium, and here is the president of Rwanda trying the robot, and we have robot from Cambridge Medical, robot from Medtronic, etc. So you see more than 3,000 surgeons trained just in Strasbourg, and a lot of webinar, more than 50,000 connections per year. WebSearch, I really encourage you to be connected to WebSearch because it is free of charge and translated in 7 different languages with thousands and thousands video of new technology of minimal invasive surgery. And to finish, what is the notion of globalization? You see that today, IRCAD France is what we can call the mother, the headquarters in 1994. And after that, we had Taiwan in 2008, 2 in Brazil, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, in Beirut, in Lebanon and Rwanda. That means IRCAD Africa will open in December. The construction will be finished. And we have 1 in China and 1 in United States. So that is the center in Taiwan, just near a big hospital. And for IRCAD Africa, we will have also the university hospital is going to move just near IRCAD Africa. So it will be easier for all the surgeons to come and to go back to the hospital. We have this one is Barretos, state of Sao Paulo, training all surgeons from Latin America. And that means not only Brazil, but all the different countries of Latin America. In Rio de Janeiro, it's the same. It's a deal with a private American company, and that is in Liban. And that I think that President King will speak a little more, but the most beautiful, the biggest one will be in Africa. It will be IRCAD Africa in Kigali with 4 different buildings connected together with exactly the same technology. One word about IRCAD in China. IRCAD in China will be finished in a little less than 1 year. It's done by a very big company of South Korean. And you see it's an exceptional project. And finally, we signed also 2 months ago with United States to have an IRCAD in Charlotte, that is North Carolina. And on peut supprimer la diade. So just to explain, that what we call the globalization, it's very important for each unit, for each IRCAD. And IRCAD in Rwanda, for example, IRCAD Africa, will be connected with all the different operating rooms we have connected with. That means we can do the course at the same moment. So we can be connected with Hong Kong, with United States, with Europe, with Asia, with other centers in Africa. Very important to point that because as Guillaume Maresco said just before, the success of IRCAD in Rwanda is only possible if we have a local, regional, African strong team. Because, it's impossible. It's a reason why never we have done that in Middle East, because in Middle East, they want to pay a lot, but you have nobody on site. So I repeat, we need the support of each of you, each minimal invasive surgeon who can support the courses, be the trainer, give lectures. And this lecture can be also connected in Europe or connected in different countries where we have IRCAD. So that's exactly 15 minutes that my son gave to me. If you have any question, just 15 minutes, exactly, my dear Charles. And so thank you, Guillaume. I know you are in Kigali with, I see the big president, not big, great, sorry, great President King, and also Charles, who is advisor of the Minister of Health, that is a very close friend of us in Strasbourg because he was gynecologist in Strasbourg. So thank you very much for your attention. On ne vous entend pas. On n'a pas le son. On n'a pas le son, les enfants.
The sound. Thank you very much. You hear me now? Okay, thank you very much. And now I introduce my dear president, Dr. King Kayondo, who's a general surgeon working hard for the Institute, and he will explain us how this concept of IRCAD can be transposed here in Africa. Thank you, King.
Thank you, Dr. Guillaume. Professor Jacques Maresco, thank you for the great introduction of IRCAD, and even to speak and to say what bring to the world IRCAD as a family. Sir, with your permission, I want to with all protocol observed, good afternoon. Once again, you are welcome in this webinar. My name is Kayondo King, as my colleague, Dr. Guillaume said, and I'm the president of IRCAD Africa. It's an honor for me to introduce to you IRCAD Africa and to make a quick round of the facility, which is another mirror of IRCAD in Africa continent. As introduction, as you know, access to surgical care in developing countries and specifically in sub-Saharan Africa is still extremely limited, which causes a burden on our population. If you look at the Lancet Commission reports, 5 billion of people lack access to emergency and essential surgical care. There are approximately 234 million surgeries that are undertaken in the world, but the world currently needs an additional of almost 143 million surgery, mostly in developing countries. Now, a close look into Africa, and more specifically the sub-Sahara region. You can find that despite carrying most of the world disease burden, Africa has the lowest number of physicians and surgeons per habitant. And the sub-Saharan Africa has less than 4% of the equivalent number of surgeons in the Western world. And it must be appreciated that the number of surgeons per capita in many African countries is extremely low. And to overcome this burden, we need new strategies. We need innovative approaches. So it's by there we understand that the African continent is currently at a turning point, and we must be ready to change this paradigm. Africa is called upon to urgently scale up surgical services, and if Africa does not accelerate investment in surgical care, we will continue to have losses in economic productivity. So what do we need to do as a continent to scale up our surgical services? We have currently 3 points we have to raise. First of all is the leadership. The political will is a cornerstone of improving healthcare of our population, and is the most important factor determining the progress of health services and specifically surgery in Africa. Then the infrastructure as well, the lack of equipment other critical components on development of surgery in developing countries. Then the human capital. The intervention strategy recommends to the intervention strategy recommends to work on the human capital. And it's important that to know that for the scale up of surgical services to be speedy in Africa, they need to invest in human capital, infrastructure, and equipment. On top of all, strong political will, which will give an accessible and affordable, a sustainable, advanced, and cost-effective surgical training available in the continent. So, IRCAD Africa. It is in this context that Rwanda, in partnership with IRCAD France, which is a World Reference Center for Research, Training, and Education in MIS, with almost 3 decades of experience, which has trained thousands of surgeons and researchers around the world, under the visionary and innovative leadership of Professor Jacques Maresco, here present. And it's with those joint forces that we created IRCAD Africa. And this will be a center of excellence in MIS located in Kigali, and which will serve the whole continent and especially Sub-Saharan African. And our mission and vision, as you can see, it's very simple, is to become the largest African leading center of excellence in training and research center of MIS. And our mission is to improve and advance surgery in Africa by closing the technology gap and knowledge gap in MIS. Why was Rwanda chosen? I think my colleague will explain it a bit more, but IRCAD Africa chose Rwanda as the place to be because of favorable environment and, most importantly, its leadership and political will. And we will, as you can see that my colleague, we will explain a bit more, but this will really cutting costs on African surgeons, how they have to travel for across the continent seeking for the best surgical training, and this, it will be available just next door. And this platform created, will facilitate the transfer of knowledge and technology centered on MIS, and we plan to have an annual turnover of 800 to 1,000 surgeons in a progressive way. And our participants will have theoretical session before noon, then they will practice in live tissue afterward at ease. So in their free time, they could do various activities of their choice, such as tourism, sport activities, and shopping and others. I think the concept of augmented surgery, the Professor Maresco explained it very well. I think it's how we will focus more on augmented vision, augmented gesture, and augmented brain. I think Professor Maresco explained it very well. But we have also in IRCAD Africa a big center of research and development center in computer science and artificial intelligence applied to surgery. And it will be one of the biggest researcher center in artificial intelligence applied to surgery in Africa, if not the biggest. And currently we have a group of African engineers who work in binôme with their counterpart from IRCAD France on innovative projects and develop alternative approaches taking into account local context. And for now, we have almost 12 researchers with 2 PhD students, 7 surgeons working full-time. And we have also some good partners, e-Scopics, Canon, Axilium, Robotics, Calstos, Endoscope, Visible Patients, and others, Medtronics and CMS. In addition to bring high-level surgical training on the continent, Africa also opened the door to medical research focused on pathology, African pathology, and led by African researchers on the continent. This is just our master plan, our land, which we have all, if I can see, we have almost 5 hectares, and we begin now by the big construction, and we will for sure develop it after a startup hub for artificial intelligence and health companies. We will bring in some facilities, residence for our trainees. We think to build also a nursing school, and among other things. Just, I want to share a small video of IRCAD Africa. And this, it was designed by an iconic architect, French architect, and the building marry the landscape in the shape of our famous volcanoes. The building materials are largely made of local products such as clay, wood, and mud, with a decoration that's original African. And to conclude, we are really convinced that IRCAD Africa, with this ecosystem that is being put in place, will have a major impact on improving surgery and the level of quality of care in the region. And with that, I will, with that, I think it will be, for me, to conclude, we'll see that as the Professor Maresco said, it really, we will welcome you to bring our efforts to build such facility, to bring an ecosystem that will help Africans to build an affordable and accessible and sustainable center of excellence of MIS in our continent for the most great good of our population. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, King. Thank you very much. We now understand much more what is IRCAD Africa going to provide, and it's very interesting. Don't forget, if anybody has some question, to write to them, and we will answer it during the time. Our third speaker, he woke up very early for all of you, is Professor Armando Melani from Brazil. He's director of IRCAD in Brazil, and he will try to explain to us how IRCAD in Brazil tried to make his own identity, doing some different type of courses, and is unique on its sense. So hello, Armando, and welcome.
So thank you very much, Guillaume. It's a great pleasure being with you all today. I hope you can get my signal. Can you hear me and see my video?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's a privilege for me being here today to speak about what we did in Brazil and our expectation related to IRCAD Africa. And of course, we are very proud to participate in France also, as this concept of IRCAD is kind of a family, and it motivates us to be more and more working and developing Brazilian and Latin American surgeons. So in purpose, I have my presentation in Portuguese because one of the first challenges that we have is that in Brazil, the majority of people do not speak English. So was mandatory for us to have also Latin American guys because we are a unique country in Latin America that speaks Portuguese, and we had to have a translation for Spanish and also English. And this is an important point to have a success training center. We don't have this in Taiwan, and we don't have this in France. And I believe that this is something that is going to be very important in Africa, because in Africa you have among you several countries that speak different languages. You know that IRCAD comes from France, and so I'm not going to jump on that. And also the history about IRCAD, no, very famous, starting 94, 2000, Marisco did an amazing project that is called Web Surge, and today is still a stronger weapon to have all the surgeons connected, maybe almost 500,000 nowadays. And he did in 2001, let's celebrate this year, 2001 years from the first Lindenberg transatlantic surgeon. In 2008, they were very generous to expand their activities in Taiwan. And 2011, we are fortunate to have them with us in Brazil. And so we start our first unit in Barretos. And in 2007, I am a privileged guy to have 2 units of IRCAD in my country, but I will explain why you have those. So, and this is what we expect. We had the 2019 Lebanon, Rwanda, 2024 China, USA, and we all know the leader of all of this is Professor Marisco, and everything that we receive is desired and well deserved, in fact. And the most important thing at IRCAD, we try to develop the state of art of minimally invasive surgery. It doesn't matter if it's on laparoscopy, flexible endoscopy, or robotics, what in Brazil grows in the last 7 years, because until 2014, we had only 80 machines in Brazil, and now we have almost close to 100. And the most important thing, what we saw and we try to adapt from France, the programs, is to understand the needs of our surgeons. And we know nowadays that at that time, the majority of surgeons, they didn't have the good training on minimally invasive surgery, even laparoscopy. Still nowadays in the public health system, 70% of the gallbladders are removed by open surgery. And I really believe that is really pretty similar with Africa. So to teach these people, to get these people together, and we have people from all over the world, and they collaborate with us. This is why we need the translation, because we receive people from all over the world. Besides, English is our first language to be teaching IRCAD. Sometimes this is not possible, and this is why we develop local courses in Portuguese language, with translation for Spanish to adapt, because I believe that Brazil is pretty similar with Rwanda and Africa. Once nowadays, 70% of our population have some genetics from Afro descendants. And so 70% of our population is a mix. It's of South American and Afro descendants. And so this is the beauty of our place. And we have a training in several specialties. We start off, of course, with general surgery, digestive surgery, EMT, gynecology, endoscopy, colonoscopy, urology, spine, head and neck, arthroscopy, pediatrics, pain, anesthesia, and several other specialties like intensive care, and some uh, physician assistant courses. And we also have a course for nurses. And what we try to grow is the knowledge of all the environment that that surround uh, this healthcare treatments. So we have two units, one in Barretos and another one in Rio. I'm going to explain why we have two units. The first one, Barretos, what we love, and I cannot, well, I have some interest conflicts now. I cannot speak about Barretos because it's from my heart is the place where we grow and we love. Barretos has a unit with an auditorium for 130 people, a lab with 21 stations, integrated OR. And in Rio, we have a 4K auditorium with 3D projector, was projected more for robotic surgeries, and also a station with 20 stations for laparoscopy and training. And also we have a lab for with fusion equipment of Siemens, that is Artifino, to teach in radiology, interventional radiology. And also we are a certified center for Da Vinci in South America. We have also simulators. And how we do this training? So we have theoretical, we have practice, and we have also exchange of experience. And this is the most important thing. We have a theoretical model for in the majority of our courses where we can have live surgeries, we have interaction, we have discussion, we have lectures, and we have the module at the lab, what everybody knows. And this is copy from France, because France, when they built IRCAD and they built the methodology, what is the most important thing in IRCAD, and it is the same in all of those training centers. We brought those methodology, and this is why with standardized procedures, we teach people. So, and also we have networking, because in the during the meetings, we have lunches, we have people exchanging with the professors, and you can have access to maybe the most important surgeons in the world, and you can talk with them, you can share your experience, you can ask them what you have to do. We have different types of courses, 2 or 3 days, the basic ones, intensive courses, 5 days, and advanced courses, 2 or 3 days courses, exactly as we have in France. But unfortunately, during the pandemics, we had to change. We had to change because for the residents and the very young people, what they want to go to the lab. And so we don't spend time teaching them theoretical things during the course. We have a small session, 2 hours in the morning, just to explain their doubts, because we create an e-learning system on the web. And so we have 54 lectures on web. They have to go to these lectures. They have to go one by one. And there is a quiz at the end of each lecture. And so we brought for their houses the theoretical content, and then they can be more time in the lab being trained. And so this is one of the innovations that we create for our residents in general surgery. And we also have the course for robotic surgery. And also we are training also robotic surgeons. The most important thing, besides the simulation and everything, is to create an environment what is easy for everybody to come. Barretos is not easy to reach, but everybody, when they are there, they are immersed, and our coordinators create for them an opportunity to have facilitations during their travel. So we have to take care of them in all of those things. And we have we share our space, because we are not so full as France, with some companies to promote also in our training center their products. We have a strong partnership with several companies. Without them, it's impossible to do this. And we are also proud to be accredited for international quality organizations. Our mission is to deliver quality for the life of our patients through the healthcare capacitation, increasing their knowledge and helping them to get there. So this is the main purpose of IRCAD Brazil and also Latin America. And why we have two centers? Well, Barretos is the largest cancer hospital in Latin America, 9,000 patients per day. And unfortunately, in IRCAD, we don't train only cancer. We need a general hospital to train another specialties. And we have to complement what we have in Barretos with another unit in Rio, where we are attached to a general hospital, where you can teach orthopedics, neurosurgery, all of those things that are not related to oncological procedures. And this is why we could have two distinguished units in the same country. But I really believe that the most important thing is understanding the needs of the surgeons in Africa. Certainly, as in Brazil, they are different from Europe, and we have to adapt the methodology that we learn and we use from France to Africa to develop and grow not minimally invasive surgery by itself, but all standards of care. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure being here today. You don't know how much we are excited to collaborate with IRCAD Africa, and we consider you guys as a brothers, really brothers in our heart, and we are open to help you anything that you need, as Jack pushing us to collaborate with this amazing project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonello. Thank you very much for your energy in the early Brazilian morning.
Antonello, no, Antonello is coming. I'm by the way, thank you, Jack, because Antonello was here until yesterday, our Brazilian meeting of colorectal surgery, and he's doing an amazing job, and we want to change things.
So just before introducing you to thank you, Antonello, just before introducing you to Armando, to the next speaker, I just answered to one or two questions that we had. We had some question from some surgeon from Tunisia asking if IRCAD Africa is reserved for people from sub-Saharan countries. Not at all. We are open to everybody and everybody from Africa, and people asking how can we be part of the faculty. We really need to have some strong support from surgeons from all Africa, and we need to have faculty from people everywhere in the continent. So please don't hesitate to send an email to IRCAD Africa. We will check, and we will be very pleased to have you on board with this project. So now let me introduce to who doesn't know him. So Dr. Cocker, maybe if you're there with us, you can share with us Dr. Cocker will share with us his experience in Strasbourg and in IRCAD, and share his vision of teaching in Africa.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to share my experience in terms of the journey to surgical education, using IRCAD as the point of contact. I'm currently the president of the Laparoscopic Surgery Society of Nigeria, where we do run training courses also. Surgery, as you all know, requires mastery of psychomotor skills, in addition to things like knowledge, good judgment, under pressure, and teamwork. Now, acquiring psychomotor skills. Acquiring psychomotor skills is a four-stage process. And This usually goes from being unconscious, where you don't know anything about a procedure, say laparoscopic cholecystectomy. You then go on to read about laparoscopic cholecystectomy. You become consciously incompetent. To become consciously competent, one will need to go through different phases of learning, psychomotor skills acquisition, spending some time with a master Maresco, so that over a period of time, one can acquire the necessary skills. And of course, when one becomes unconsciously competent, one has mastered the procedure. Professor Maresco showed an interesting slide of when he was in New York, of thousands of people being in the operating theater. And that was the apprenticeship model of training that those of us who are old enough to have gone through that system had to learn. It's a long period of, at that time, that was all what that was possible. And often it was trial and error using live patients. There then became a shift in emphasis from using live patients to using simulators and animal models to acquire this skill. And this was emphasized with the advent of laparoscopic surgery in the late 80s and early 90s. And this shift in emphasis was very important because it allowed trainees to be able to see what the master was doing. I did my surgical training in the United Kingdom. And at the time, in the early 90s, it was forbidden to use pigs for surgical procedures. And you who are familiar with live demonstrations know that the pig anatomy is similar to human. And it's really one of the best ways to be able to acquire such skills. In the United Kingdom, the colorectal surgical trainees form a club called the Duke's Club after Cuthbert Dukes. Cuthbert Dukes was the one that devised the Duke's classification for colorectal cancer. And in partnership with large equipment manufacturers, Duke's Club trainees were sponsored to visit ARCAD. So in 1998, I was privileged to visit ARCAD 4 years after it opened its doors. And I remember the course on laparoscopic colorectal surgery that I attended at the time. It was facilitated by Professor Leroy from Belgium. And this was in May 1998. It was a fantastic experience with state-of-the-art equipment and opportunity to meet surgeons from all over the world, different parts of the world. And some of these surgeons are still friends today that we still communicate and learn from each other. And that experience was quite a formative one because not only did we have the opportunity to meet the masters, we were able to collaborate amongst the trainees and able to share experiences to be able to understand what mistakes we may have made in previously and opportunities for growth in future. My last visit to ARCAD was in September 2021. And this was a fantastic experience because it was a much changed and upgraded facility. This is in Strasbourg now. And what I found was an institution that has totally changed, evolved into other areas, apart from the notable laparoscopic excellence in flexible, in rigid endoscopy. They had moved on to using flexible endoscopy for training. They had perfected the natural orifice transluminal endoscopic surgery. And more importantly, there were quite a lot of robotics there for learning and understanding. What has been special and unique about ARCAD Strasbourg, and I'm sure the other centers of ARCAD, is the high trainer to trainee ratio. This helps in ensuring that the people who attend the ARCAD sessions are able to acquire the skills under supervision. And usually what happens is that there is instant assessment of the trainee skills with positive feedback on ways of improving. This, I think, is unique and is something that I have found very useful. And I'm sure it's something that will be replicated in ERCAD Africa. We are all familiar with web search, and I know that Professor spoke earlier about the online university that started in 2000, and now has almost 500,000 members. This again is a fantastic innovation that has allowed the expansion and the dissemination of knowledge with minimal access surgery all over the world. For me personally, my 24-year association with ERCAD has been an enriching experience that has allowed me to introduce practical skills acquisition at a much smaller scale in different parts of the world. I am super excited, really very pleased that the world-beating institution that is a pioneer in minimally invasive surgery will be coming to the continent of Africa, and particularly to Kigali in Rwanda. This is an opportunity for us to expand the frontiers of minimally invasive surgery acquisition in Africa. And I'm glad that my brothers in Tunisia, in Egypt, and Algeria have also made inquiries. And I note that in the charts too, that the South African surgeon was making inquiry. So we really do have the scope to concentrate surgeons in both East, West, Southern, and Northern Africa to the center of Africa, which is where Kigali is. And we should all be able to collaborate. Experienced surgeons, trainers, teachers can collaborate and ensure that the next generation of surgeons in Africa are able to benefit from what their older colleagues could not. For this, I'd like to thank Professor Maresco for all his hard work, the pioneer, the vision, and the drive to ensure that all over the world now, ERCAD is spreading the gospel of minimal invasive surgery. And for this, I'm very grateful, and a big thank you from those of us on the continent of Africa. Thank you very much, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Coker. Thank you for this experience sharing. Now, I think we can try to see if Professor Gay, if we can hear you well now. Can you can speak. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I still have a problem getting on, let me diapositive, or you know well. I still have some problem with my screen to share, but allow me to speak quickly so we don't waste time. I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this webinar, and particularly to thank Professor Jacques Maresco to have been able to bring ERCAD to Africa. And I would like to send my apologies since way back we met in Kigali, Guillaume, and I wasn't able to connect with Professor Maresco. I think that will be done soon. And for the matter of information, I have been invited to speak at the French Academy of Surgery late this year in November. And I'll be speaking about the training of surgeons in Africa. And if you allow me, I'm gonna email you, I'm gonna maybe say a word on what ERCAD Africa is planning to do for the sake of development of MIS in Africa. As you know, there's a difference between North Africa and Southern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa as regard to the program in MIS. Most of the Sub-Saharan African countries are low-income countries, while the northern countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, and so are middle-income countries, where there are well-established minimally invasive training program with adequate number of MIS experts, while in Sub-Saharan Africa, there are very few MIS training programs with an insufficient number of experts in MIS, all specialty combined. So we need to address this shortage of trainees and of training program in Sub-Saharan Africa, meaning the Africa below Morocco and above South Africa, because South Africa is has another figure as Morocco. So we need for infrastructure, and as Professor Marisco says at the beginning, we need equipment and new technologies. We need to set training curriculum and set international collaboration with exchange program, on-site hands-on workshops and mentorship. But what is mostly needed to me is to establish a post-fellowship diploma in MIS. And this can be hosted by IRCAD Africa in collaboration with the regional universities and regional colleges like COSEXA and West African College of Surgeons. I have introduced to the college the pipeline an MOU between IRCAD Africa and West African College of Surgeons. And I think that by the end of this year, when we meet in October for the next council meeting, we will be able to finalize that MOU and have it signed before our next meeting that will be in Togo, in March, 23rd, I think, of March in Togo. Would like to take the opportunity to thank very much Dr. Jimmy Cocker. Jimmy Cocker has been very instrumental to establishing the outreach program of the college, and I think he will continue to do so. And I think that we need globally to think about an initiative for minimally invasive surgical training in Africa, like IMISTA, that will help after IRCAD Africa to see how we can scale up. Because one center is not enough, but IRCAD Africa can be the center, the hub, and you can have satellite center in each region of Africa. This will help to address the deficiency of local expertise and of accredited MIS surgical training centers. And this needs a collaborative effort between IRCAD Strasbourg, IRCAD Africa, international surgical organization and corporates to develop meaningful programs in the different regions and considering the language differences, meaning French, English, and Portuguese, because we have 5 Portuguese countries in Africa: Mozambique, Angola, São Tomé and Príncipe, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Bissau. And I think this needs to be addressed because of the language difference. And we can have the regional training center attached to IRCAD Africa, and that will help to educate surgeons from various countries in their respective region instead of having them to fly back and forth from any place to Kigali, which is a lovely one, actually, lovely place. And the target should be the training of residents in all surgical specialties. Having a post-fellowship program in MIS will help. It can be from 2 to 4 semesters, and then having short-term posting for 6 to 12 weeks in Kigali. And we should address the issue of training the trainers so to transfer the competence to the consultant surgeon to be able to develop capacity in their respective hospitals in the various regions of Africa. We need to implement this training in taking care of the priorities and need to assess the MIS surgical expertise throughout our sub-Saharan Africa, where the infrastructures are and the equipment, where the training positions are, and maybe the areas of most need in area of priority. But most of all, we should develop a meaningful partnership with international association, IRCAD Strasbourg, IRCAD Africa, and corporates organization to build capacity in Africa. And we should use widely distance learning tools as we have done in some experiences with some institutions in France and other places. And we need to think about a comprehensive regional center for capacity building in MIS, the same actually that is being built, and I was privileged to visit recently in Kigali, should be replicated maybe in a smaller format in each sub-region to allow people to be able to access training at any given time. The future, I'm gonna end on this slide, the future of MIS practice in Sub-Saharan Africa is to improve awareness on MIS as an essential component of surgical care. All the governments and stakeholders should be aware of that and invest in minimally invasive surgery. And for that, training is a key component to build manpower and to increase institutional capacity. But we need to set collaboration and international partnership with IRCAD Strasbourg, IRCAD Africa, the professional societies, universities and colleges, NGOs, and foundation. And this is, to me, the way to go
Je sais pas, on va move on.
So, sorry, we just lost the connection. We just lost your last sentence.
Guillaume, vous m'avez entendu?
Juste la dernière phrase, we lost, I think.
The last one was that IRCAD Africa should be the pilot project to build on and to scale up to go to the other region to make sure that any region can access MIS training at any given time. So thank you very much. And sorry, I'm not in Dakar. I'm in a resort. We are organizing now the African Regional Cancer Conference at someone. It is a resort, and I just put the time for you. When I finish, I'm gonna go on my shirt again. I'm very sorry for that. Professeur Maresco Jacques, merci beaucoup et désolé de n'avoir pas encore rencontré. Et comme je disais, au mois de novembre, je dois donner une conférence à l'Académie de chirurgie sur la formation des chirurgiens en Afrique, comparant les pays anglophones et les pays francophones. Et je pense que c'est très intéressant de donner, faire une ou deux diapositives sur donc cet espoir qu'on a qu'avec ICAT Africa, nous pourrons avoir la formation en chirurgie mini-invasive partout. Merci beaucoup.
We will. Thank you very much, Professor Gay. We will send to you some slides or a short video, and I know that you are invited in the National Academy, French Academy. Unfortunately, I am in Buenos Aires at this period. I'm in Argentina for the National Congress, but I know that you are a guest, an important guest from our president of Academy.
I will send you my slide right after now. I will send you my slide for you to have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gay. And so now our next speaker, Dr. Charles Nsegiumva, who's the one who made me discover Rwanda, and he's participating in this project since the beginning. And he will explain us just very quickly why Rwanda and what opportunity you have in Rwanda. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Guillaume. It's very difficult for me to speak after Professor Gay, my friend Professor Gay. Thank you for your presentation. And I would like to say to our young surgeons who are to this webinar that they have a special opportunity with IRCAD Africa. They can come to learn minimally invasive surgery. I think that everywhere in the world is possible, and especially in Africa. In our hospital university, we have to practice minimally invasive surgery. So our young surgeons have to learn, and they have a special opportunity with IRCAD Africa. Guillaume asked me to talk to you about why IRCAD in Rwanda. We have a chance in Rwanda. We are a geographical location in the center of Africa, so it's easy to access in Kigali for all surgeons who come from east, north, south of Africa. And now we have our society, Rwanda Air, which serves 21 African capitals. So it's very simple for you if you want to come to learn here in Rwanda. With Rwanda, it's very, very simple to come here. I would like to say too that we have three languages, official language. We have speak English, we speak French, and we speak Swahili. And this is very good opportunity for the surgeon who speak English. There will be no problem. The surgeon who speak French, who speak Swahili, they will come here to take course in minimally invasive surgery. The other thing I would like to say is the security here in Rwanda, in Kigali. The security is total security. We are the second most secure country in Africa. There is no problem. The third thing, it's very important. We are very good internet connection with a 4G LTE network at 95%. It's very important to have a good connection in this new technology. So I think when Professor Maresco decided to come here in Rwanda,
The first question asked me, he said, do you have a good connection internet? So it's very important to have a good connection, and we have it here in Rwanda. Finally, I can say that you can have your visa on arrival here in Rwanda. We don't have many formalities to do. Visa fee waiver for African Union nationals. You don't have to pay anything if you come from a country in Africa. Finally, Rwanda, like said many people before me, is home to leading university like Carnegie Mellon University, IMS, is African Institute Mathematics Science, African Leadership University. All these universities are here in Rwanda. It's a very, very good thing for IRCAD Africa to be in this context. With other university, we can make many connections. So your time is very valuable, and I will finish with a small video. I want to show you the beautiful to come here in Rwanda. Thank you.
So just to conclude, I think this was a very good webinar. Everybody, I hope you understand much more what IRCAD Africa will provide to all the surgeons in Africa. What we need to insist on, and Antonello wanted to insist on, is that we really need to have a strong community of surgeons coming from the whole continent to help us. We will never have only surgeons coming from France, from Brazil, from the US to teach, but we also need to have a strong scientific group of people. So if you want to participate in this incredible journey that will change the image of surgery and surgery in Africa, you should just send an email to IRCAD Africa. It's info@ircad.africa, and you send an email and we will work on it and to see how we can make you come here to IRCAD and help us to teach to all the students. And I think that's the most important thing for today. And if there's any question, I answered, I think, all the questions that we had. So I think it's time for me to say thank you to everybody, for my president, Dr. King, and all the other. King, do you want to end the session with a last message?
I think the last message will be from Professor Maresco. I think this is a very nice call for all of us, for all people in Africa, surgeons, professors. Please, let's bring our efforts to build this fantastic facility, and which will be affordable, accessible for surgeons from Africa. And for sure, we will improve the quality of care of surgery in the continent, and this it will be for the good of our population. Thank you.
Perfect. So just to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to join us for this webinar. I think it was very important to introduce the concept of IRCAD, International IRCAD, and especially I want to thank Armando Melani also, because I know I just sent an SMS to Armando to say you share your experience with such a patient, and that was nice. And I know that all the Brazilian team will support this fantastic project. And thank you for Professor Gay. Thank you for Professor Cocker, because that is a sign, very important symbol that a lot of African society will join the team. So thank you a lot to President King, Charles, and my son, because I have to confess that without my son pushing me to do something in Africa, never I had the idea to imagine to create something in Africa. So thank you, Guillaume, and thank you, everybody. Have a very good day. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Ciao.